not only available for worship, but also available to pursue justice and truth and righteousness, available that to protect those that are vulnerable and to protect those that may have been violated. Tonight we come here on a mission of justice, on a mission, on an assignment that is near and dear and central to your heart, to bring about justice for those whom you have decreed are worthy of justice, and also to call attention to the powers that be, that they are indeed accountable to you. So tonight we ask that our actions might be multiplied in a powerful way. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, on earlier last month, I believe it was March 12th, was the date of the incident. A gentleman was in a hoagie shop, with 2J's hoagie shop, pretty well known hoagie shop in Chester, about maybe less than 5 minutes from where we are right now, and was buying a sandwich. Was not committing a crime, was buying a sandwich, and had a seizure. In the midst of the seizure, the medical personnel were notified and they responded. And of course, whenever the medical personnel respond, then the police respond. And in the midst of the seizure, some seizures are uncontrollable, some individuals can make violent reactions, violent movements. And this individual, this young man, Darren Scott, who by name, was making some, what some people consider to be violent reactions. And I believe when I saw him, I've seen him twice in George W. Hill Prison, he shared with me that he informed the EMT that he did not want to go into the ambulance, but would rather seek medical attention on his own. And he was still compelled to go into the ambulance. And when he entered the ambulance with the EMT, who I understand was a trainee, was not even a fully certified EMT. The police officer went into the ambulance with him. And according to the officer, the EMT was kicked, and the officer suffered was assaulted. And as a result of that, the officer began to use his taser. And I believe Darren said he was tased 15 times. And that is enough to almost kill a human being. And I know that because I'm a former police officer myself. And back in the day when tasers first came out in the 80s, most of the people that used tasers back then, you had to actually stand and be tased yourself. I remember watching those videos as a law enforcement officer. But he suffered a collapsed lung. If you don't know what that means when your lung collapses, you have a very high probability of not living very long. But in the midst of him suffering the collapsed lung, in the midst of him being tased multiple times by the police officer, he was admitted to Crozier Hospital. A toxicology test was done. The test results came back that he had no controlled substance in his system. And according to Darren, the police officer that accompanied him in the ambulance, also accompanied him in the emergency room, waiting for these results. And the results came back that Darren was in fact not under the influence of any controlled substance. Officer felt some kind of way, demanded to see the report from the nurse. The nurse withheld the report from him, and then the officer disappeared, came back about an hour later, and that's when all the charges, aggravated assault on a police officer, etc., etc., numerous charges were rendered against Darren. So what I want to do now is I want to read this scripture so we have a text, and then I'm going to just let it rip, as we say. But the text I want to lift up tonight is from the 58th chapter of Isaiah, and the beginning of verse 1, it says, "Cry aloud, spare not. Lift up thy voice like a trumpet, and show my people their transgressions, and the house of Jacob their sins." And when things happen in our community, regardless as to who it is, whether it's a black person, a white person, a middle class person, working class person, a poor person, a gay person, a straight person. When injustice occurs, we have to cry aloud. It's one thing for us to get amongst our own little huddles and talk about it, go to the barber shop, go to the beauty shop, whisper in our homes, and we all stand back and say, ooh, that's bad. Ooh, somebody ought to do something. But the somebody is really us. And when I saw it in the paper, when I was called by Darren's wife, it just did something to my heart because, you know, we read about these things every day. We see them, we experience them. But sometimes that one event happens that just makes you angry and motivates you, propels you. And this was that event for me. So I decided that, number one, I wanted to be involved to the extent of being a voice and an advocate. I was there at the preliminary hearing with Darren. I gave a video statement on the Delaware Times website. I made comments in the newspaper. There were 4 articles written about this event. So you can look them up. 3 of them are on the phillynews.com, and 1 of them is on the Delaware County Daily Times.com. I feel this is a gross injustice. I feel it's a revelation and a continuation of what I call the dark side of Delaware County. Delaware County, all the commercials, all the brochures, everybody's smiling. You see the pictures of the Delaware County Council, and they're standing there like this, and they got their, you know, the men have their Joseph Beck suits on, and the women have their, you know, St. John dresses on, and they're smiling, and it's wonderful. But the reality is, everything in Delaware County is not wonderful. We have a long, unfortunate history of strife, injustices. There's a poster right here, up here in front of the church, which is an event that occurred in Fallcroft, where a young man who was a veteran, by the way, wanted to purchase a home. And coincidentally, at the same time, it was March on Washington with Dr. King. And he was a United States veteran. And there was a mob of about 150 people outside the house. They had called the state police. And you can even see the faces of the children. And you can see the anger and the hatred for this young couple that were trying to buy a home. And those expressions can be repeated all over Delaware County. I've heard many, many stories. And it doesn't just extend towards people of color, but even if you are considered a marginalized person. So what I'm trying to say is this is not just a black thing. This is a people thing. Because we've even had some of our members who are white get stopped by the Trainer Police because they were in a place that the Trainer Police didn't think that they should have been. Okay, so racial profiling or profiling is not just a black thing. It can also be a white thing because we're living in a police state. If you don't know that now. The police have equipment they never had before. I mean, when I was a cop in the 80s, I never dreamed about the kind of things they have now. They're already taking your picture every day. You see those little things on the back of the police car, the lens antennas? They're taking a picture of your license plate, they're taking a picture of your car, so they're monitoring your movements. You see those little red light cameras? That's not just if you blow the light, that's also taking a picture of where you are at certain times so they can plot your movements. Okay? So we're in a police state. Everything that some of you, particularly young people, you may have read 1984. Well, we're in 1984 now. Okay, we're in 1984. We're in a state where everything we're doing is being monitored. The police have powers they never had before. And there's really not a voice. There's not a political voice. Because if you're a conservative, they talk about law and order. If you're a Democrat, they have to talk about law and order because they don't want to seem soft on crime. So reality is, these type of issues, you're not going to find a political ally. You're not going to find somebody that's in politics that's going to ride on the white horse and save the day. So when we begin to do things like this is what's called a grassroots movement. It's not going to be a movement where this politician want to sign up, this person's going to beat the drum. Because now it's been in the media, and there hasn't been any political interest on either side of the aisle, Democrat or Republicans. So it's just grassroots people that want to make a difference and want to say, we believe this is an injustice, one of many. And the only way things have ever changed in America is through people like us. So So I'm saying this to say, don't be discouraged because the place is not full. Because each one of us is a center of influence. And we can begin to let other people know that this event happened with Darren Scott. And also, I'm sure everybody in there can tell some kind of story about, particularly those of us that are older, about many things that have happened. And I never thought I would be an activist at this stage of my life. Never thought I'd be, running around, protesting and talking about things. I just thought I'd be getting ready for my retirement. Because I've been working since I was 16 years old. So, I thought I'd be getting ready for my retirement. But there's a scripture that says when David saw that the people were being threatened by Goliath, he said, "Is there not a cause?" And when you get a cause, that empowers you, invigorates you, it energizes you. So even though I may be in the autumn of my life, so to speak, I'm very energized by these causes. I know for a fact that there is a historical precedent for police abuse and misuse. We had right here in the city of Chester, we had a young man just a little while ago, Daniel Sims, was shot in the back by a Chester police officer. And the story, if you guys remember, if you guys were following that story, it didn't add up. It didn't add up. And I'm an ex-cop, it just didn't add up because they say he had a gun. They say he had a gun. That's what the police said. Now, he had a weapon, and the police approached him, and then he ran. He ran away from the police. So then he ran down towards 23rd Street where there's a brick wall. I've been down that street where he was shot. There's a brick wall about 10 feet high. And he's from Chester, so he knew the area. Why would you run there if you were this hardcore gangster when you know there's no way to get out of it? Okay? So the question is that we have to think, and it literally is this. If a person has a weapon and they pull it out, you're a police officer, you see them with the weapon, then they run. Okay? And somehow this person gets shot, and they're shot in the back. And then if you read the article, they didn't find the weapon next to his body. Okay? Now, most of y'all watch CSI and all that. I don't watch all that because, I'm too busy being an activist. But they didn't find the weapon near his body. They found the weapon a great distance from it. They said it was almost across the street. So here's the question for the thinking person. If I'm this, if I'm this menace to society that they painted him out to be, when did I lose the weapon? Did I turn around and get shot? Please come closer, please. Did I take the weapon and throw it away and then turn my back and then you shot me? Okay? Or did I have the weapon in my hand and then you shot me and then I turned I turned my back with the weapon in my hand and then after you shot me, I threw the gun halfway across the street. This is what thinking people have to ask. Now when you think like this, they say, oh, you're against the police. I'm not against the police. I already said I'm a former police officer. But I'm against bad policing. I'm against this whole idea that there's certain people in our society that can be treated a certain way because they don't have a voice. They don't have anyone there to say this is wrong. The story didn't add up. But because it's Delaware County, now I didn't speak with that family. I wasn't involved in that situation like I'm involved in this situation. So I don't know if they ever requested a state attorney general's investigation or a Department of Justice investigation. I don't know if that happened. But what I do know is the district attorney, the officer, the DA investigated that situation, and of course, the officer was clear of any wrongdoing. That's kind of like the rooster watching the hen house. When things happen, that one of the things I want to say is the outcome of this is I'm going to put together a petition. And I'm going to start getting signatures from all over the county. I talked to an old friend of mine the other day on the phone. He was telling me some of the things that were happening in his area. He lives in Higginsville, Missouri. Little small town in Missouri. He said, Pastor Keith, it's bad down here where I am too. He said, but you know what? I got people together. I got a petition signed. and I presented it to the state attorney general. The attorney general came to our town. We had a town hall meeting with the attorney general. He said, and all the profiling stopped, and all the aggressive police behavior stopped. So what I'm saying to all of us is we may have to look outside of Delaware County for solutions to these situations. So when I make up the petition, I'm going to give it out to you. Of course, I need you to sign it, but then I need you to get other people to sign it. And the petition will say, we, the stakeholders, the taxpayers, the veterans, the voters of Delaware County are signing this petition asking for a town hall meeting with the Attorney General or a representative from the Attorney General's office to discuss what we believe are miscarriages of justice and police misconduct within our own county. That's what it's going to say. That's one of the outcomes that had from this gathering tonight. The other one is just the fact that when things happen like this, what do you do? Who do you call? What kind of lawyer do you get? Who do you tell? Who can advocate for you? We want to serve as an advocate, to be able to be that place that people can call and come and share their situation so that they have a voice that amplifies their situation. Because what happens is when you don't know what to do, everything in the justice system, again I'm speaking as a former law enforcement officer, is in favor of the state. There's nothing that's in favor of you or your loved ones should you encounter the authorities. My only introduction to Delaware County, I grew up in Philadelphia, and I grew up in the era of Mayor Frank Grizzle. How many of you ever heard of Frank Grizzle? Yeah, Frank Grizzle was a law and order, hardcore guy. Many young black men died while in police custody, while in handcuffs, etc. during the Grizzle administration. And I was a teenager during his administration. And I will say to all of you, and I hope this is on video, I will say that I'm not an admirer of the Grizzle administration, but I will say that my dealings with the law enforcement during that time, as a young man growing up, you know, my mother taught us how to dress, taught us how to put our clothes on, how to say yes or no, sir, all this, you know, press your pants, everything. When I would go to City Hall and talk to the police officers, I really never had a problem. I was able to engage them. I was able to get feedback from them, positive feedback. But when I came out here in 1995, I saw something, I experienced something I never thought I would experience again. I grew up during the Grizzle administration, lived in Philadelphia 35 years, was never racially profiled. I came out here, the first year I'm out here, I'm stopped 3 times by Delaware County Police. And I don't think I fit the profile of a gangster or a gangbanger. I don't think I fit their profile, but it was just this overzealousness. And as soon as they found out who I was, then it was, oh, I'm sorry, have a nice day, sir. Okay. I talked to other people. I talked to even other ministers that had moved in certain communities, and the police followed them around. Okay, it's overactiveness. Right here in Trainer, there's an overzealousness. It was a young, they even stopped, you know, they stopped some of our people, black and white. Just so-called the war on drugs. So if you're walking down the street, you're a private citizen, you're a good person, but you're in the area where drug sales take place, so therefore you become a suspect. See, we have to address this whole idea of looking at people as criminals and suspects first and not citizens. We're citizens first, and we're only a criminal if you're convicted of a crime. But if we have this overzealous law enforcement coupled with people turning a blind eye, then what happens is that empowers this type of thing. It says, keep doing it, keep doing it. And then when you combine that with the fact that we have what is called a monochromatic landscape. Now that's just a big word, it just means all one. Okay? When I was a cop back in the 80s, I worked in Camden County. Port Authority transit officer, and we worked from Philadelphia to Lindenwood. There's about 7 to 8 jurisdictions that we cover. Philadelphia, Camden, Lawnside, Haddon Township, Haddonfield, which is very wealthy, Voorhees, very wealthy, Philadelphia, they all had all-white police departments. All white. This is in the 80s. This is not in the 60s. I'm not that old, really. This is in the 80s. Okay, they're all white police departments. And I never thought I would come to a place in the late 20th century, now 21st century, where I would see this whole, this mass list of all white everything. See, until we have diversity in law enforcement, that's when that will also put a filter on some of these things that are happening to people in Delaware County. But it's kind of like an unwritten law. It's like the black code. You know about the black codes, where most municipalities out here have decided that they're just not going to have diversity in their law enforcement, even in the first responders, even in the fire department. See, this is why we need the AG to come out here, because I live in Ridley, and they come knocking on my door, the Legal Fire Department. They want to see how many exits are in your house and everything. And it's all white. I've been there 12 years, it ain't changed. So when you don't have a value for diversity, this is why we have to start thinking, we have to come outside the box. And we have to start challenging this in a real way, because what happens is you have this monochromatic system that continues to perpetuate itself. There's no checks and balances. You will see this inside the courthouse. You go inside the courthouse and you'll see the same thing played out. You'll see the whole departments in there are all white. If you don't know, they only have 2 black assistant district attorneys out of 64. If you don't know, they have 3 black county detectives out of how many they have. If you don't know, they have about 3 or 4 black people on the sheriff's department. So this is the county that's really run, if I dare say, it's really run by, according to plantation politics. Yeah. That's what it is. And it seems like many of the community-based leaders, faith-based leaders, black, white, Protestant, Catholic, really don't want to address these issues. But somebody has to do it. It's almost like what Dr. King said April 4th, 1967, for those of you who can remember. Dr. King gave this speech on Vietnam, the Vietnam War. He said, people don't want me to talk about it. He said, but God told me to talk about it. And he did it on the day that he was assassinated. Someone has to bring these issues up to the forefront. Someone has to go beyond thinking that we're going to get change and we're going to see policies change and systemic change through Delaware County. We as people, we're going to have to move on the hearts and minds of those that have the oversight of the county, which is the state and the federal government, to affect change. So we're here tonight to show our support for this family. Darren has 4 children and a wife, lawfully with his wife. He is not receiving proper medical care inside of George W. Hill Prison. Now, myself and Brother Carter have visited the prison. They wouldn't even let us see the medical facility. If it was such a great place, it looked to me like they would try to show it off. But he told me that he's not receiving adequate medical care. So it's imperative that with having suffered a puncture lung, having lost about 20 plus pounds since being inside the prison, and being intimidated, basically tortured. He told me some of the things they're trying to provoke him into a fight so they can perhaps do something, so they can characterize him a certain way before he goes to court again. Okay? So we have to understand all these things. He's really, at this point, a political prisoner. He's a political prisoner at this point. So for all the people that say, we done made all this progress, and isn't everything wonderful, we haven't really progressed to the point where people are really free yet. And freedom isn't free, and justice isn't free. And justice can take a long time for it to materialize and actualize. But we have to begin today. It's not a battle, it's not by might, it's not by power, but it's by God's Spirit that we want to win this fight. And when we win, everybody's going to win. When justice when justice prevails, everybody does better. Black, white, all, no matter what your income level is, everybody does better. So we have to begin somewhere. And I'm hoping and praying that this night will be a beginning. I went to a presentation last night at the Chichester High School about narcotics, and particularly about the heroin and prescription to me is that, you know, I look at things through a philosophical lens. Okay. What's amazing to me was that we have this epidemic now of young people, and these young people are overwhelmingly white. And we have this epidemic of young people who are overwhelmingly black, who are victims in the drug marketing and are victims in the criminality that's associated with that. But then we also have at the same time, Brother Carter, and this is something that we need to think about, write about, is that we have this same dichotomy here because we have these middle class and upper middle class young beautiful white children who are succumbing to this malady. And on one side, it's happening in the street. You know, it's gunfire. It's being labeled as horrific. But then on the other hand, we have the similitude of loss of life, but it's self-inflicted, and it's kind of like under the radar screen. But now it's coming out of the closet, which is a good thing. And I just say that to say that we all have to work together, because some of these same people that maybe now are starting to realize, hey, we need to get involved with our children. Hey, even though we consider ourselves to be good parents, but our children are doing some bad things. But more often than not, some of those people that consider themselves to be maybe middle class had a level of disdain for those young people that were involved in tragedies that were working class or poor. And we all need to put all our class aside. We need to put our race aside. We need to put our ideologies aside. We need to put our political beliefs aside and understand that all of our children are important. All of our children are valuable. All of our people are valuable. And we have to work towards the betterment of humanity. That's what I hope comes out of this whole heroin epidemic, that we can start seeing some bridges being built between blacks and whites, between working class and poor, and middle class people, that understand that we all may have lost some contact with our children in some way. But that doesn't make us a bad person. It just means that there's some things that we need to work on, some things we need some help with. We need somebody to come alongside of us and help us. So when we look at the articles that were written concerning this incident, you always have to remember the media is very powerful. Brother Malcolm said if you're not careful, the media will have you believing that the perpetrator is the victim and the victim is the perpetrator. Okay? Some of these articles, particularly the one in the Daily Times, because you know the Daily Times has always been slandered. And that's one of the next things that we're going to march on, Richard. We're going to have to march on the Daily Times, because in 100 years they still don't have any diversity in their writing staff. So how can they possibly represent the community when Delaware County is now at least 50% ethnic people now, but they've always had an all-white writing staff for the last 100 years. Okay? But the young lady, I met the young lady that wrote the article. She was in the program. And of course, this is all part of what happens in the media. She said he had an alleged seizure. It wasn't an alleged seizure. See, this is why you can't just believe everything you read in the paper.
Right.
You got, and she said she went online. All research is not done online. Sometimes you have to do the old-fashioned talk to people, make phone calls. She could have went by the hospital and talked to the people in the emergency room. And now she could have got a copy of the record, but they could have told her that he had a seizure confirmed by 3 neurologists.
Yeah.
Okay? This only get your news from the media. You have to go beyond the media. Okay? We might have to start our own little newspaper to tell the truth about what's happening out here. Okay? So some of you might have to write articles about what's going on out here. So he didn't have an alleged seizure, he had a seizure. That was the first inaccuracy of the article. Then you have to remember towards the end of the article, of course, they always have to, they did the same thing with Daniel, the young man that was shot in the back. They talked about the gun that he allegedly had, that it had a scope on it, it had a red light on it, had a laser, this kid walking around with the space age gun, he's ready to do something. And that wasn't his profile. Some of you maybe know that. He had been in some trouble, but he wasn't a menace to society. The people in the neighborhood knew him. They got a call from the state police that he had to go. What is the state police doing? This kid was on nobody's most wanted list.
What is the state police doing telling Delaware County that this kid has a gun, you better watch out? But that is part of the dehumanization. See, first you take away a person's humanity. Then you demonize them. You dehumanize them, and then whatever their fate is, oh well. That's the same thing Hitler did in Nazi Germany. That's the same thing every totalitarian fascist regime does. They dehumanize people. Then they demonize those people. And then whatever their fate is, oh well. So at the end of the article that and her name is Cindy Sher, she's the one that writes for the Daily Times. She says, oh, and by the way, Darren had a record. He served time for burglary and theft. Now what you need to understand, if you've been in the courtroom, you know anything about the law, you know anything about crime. Burglary and theft are not violent crimes. Okay? Robbery is a violent crime. Okay? Assault is a violent crime. But theft and burglary are not violent. So in other words, that doesn't characterize him as a violent person. A person of violence. That means if he has the opportunity, if he had the opportunity to do something, he might, slip in and take something and leave, but he didn't go to prison for hurting anyone. He didn't go to prison for attempting to hurt anyone. And this is important to the community. You got to learn how to cut through the rhetoric and get to the reality. Then the last element of our article says, oh, and by the way, he received a citation for retail theft and public drunkenness. Again, it's a character, because you know who's reading the Daily Times. I don't have to tell you who's reading the Daily Times. Says, okay, all right, he went to prison, the burglary, theft, okay, he was drunk in public. Again, retail theft is not a violent crime. Now, I asked Darren, I went to see Darren in the prison. I said, Darren, do you know what they're saying about this? Well, let me tell you what happened, Pastor Keith. This is why we had these kind of meetings. I said, Pastor Keith, I went to Family Dollar to get some things. I said, a friend of mine who is white was coming out the store. And he had taken some things out the store. Listen now, this ain't in the article. He had taken some things out the store, and he was offering them to me. And I took some of the things that he had. Both of us had a few drinks. The police arrived. He said, Pastor Keith, we knew the police officer. He knew us. He told me, Darren, if I give him a citation, I have to give you a citation. You know what that was about. Okay? So he gave the white gentleman a citation, gave Darren a citation, and then released both of them to walk home. So if he was in time, what police officer is going to allow a drunken person to go back into the public? Okay? This is why we have to be analytical when we read these things. We have to go beyond what is put in a paper, particularly a paper like the Daily Times, which I'm in harness is a very shallow, ill-written paper. We have to go beyond that. So I just want to share that with all of you. You may hear somebody say, and I reached out to NAACP, I want you to know I reached out to NAACP groups, I reached out to community leaders, I reached out to politicians, and you see who's here tonight. Okay? So that means that if it is to be, it's up to us. So that means each one of you has to recruit 2 or 3 people to be a part of this movement. And it's not about who's getting paid. I'm not getting paid to do this. None of us are getting paid to do this, but it's about what's right. And it's about what's just. And it's about speaking truth to power. So another goal that we had, that we wanted to do tonight, was to raise some funds. Darren's bail was set at $100,000. Oh. They had a bedside hearing while he had a punctured lung, been tasered 15 times. The judge in this case is Judge Seaton. I'm naming names. Judge Seaton came to the hospital, left his lofty courtroom, came into the hospital, did a bedside hearing, read all the charges against him. No matter, you in intensive care, you on basically on life support, and the judge is standing there reading all these charges to you, and you have not committed the crime. $100,000 bail. Darren had a preliminary hearing a few days ago. I was able to refer a very competent attorney to the family, Mr. Enrique Latoyson. And Enrique went to court and it got the bail reduced to $15,000. But $15,000, 10% of that is $1,500, and depending on what bails, bonds, and service you use, it may be as low as $750 to get Darren released from George W. Hill Prison. So, the other very important thing we wanted to do tonight is to start the fundraising campaign to raise funds so that Darren can be released and so that he can get the medical help that he needs and prepare himself for the next preliminary hearing, which will be April 23rd. Again, in Judge Seaton's Court, if you want to be a part of that. April 23rd in Judge Seaton's Court at 9 o'clock. And Judge, if you don't know about Chester Court is right at 7th and what's that street? Crosby? 7th, it's a 4-story building. There's Freedman Municipal Park right across the street. That's where it is. The Chester Police Station and the courthouse is in the same building. April 23rd is the next preliminary hearing. So I'm going to donate $100 personally myself, and I'm certainly not a big grip preacher, as you know, but this really just touched my heart, and I want to be a part in whatever way I can play. So Darren's wife is here, and I also have, I think, Brother Dill, you gave me some money. I still have it. See, still got your money. Brother Dill donated $25, and I think I have some other individuals that want to donate, and I'll be catching up with them soon. But whatever you have tonight, please see Sister Precious. She's here on the front row. And again, we have to protect his children. We have to protect her spirit because, like she said, Pastor Keith, I've never dealt with anything like this before. I don't have any experience with the criminal justice system. You know, I'm having all these people call me. I'm feeling some kind of way. I'm trying to take care of my family by myself now. And so we have to take up the slack until Brother Darren is able to come home and get the medical care and be reunited with his family. I fully believe that on the 23rd, if all the charges are not dropped, if it does go to media, that Darren is going to prevail. Because this is just, to me, this is just a overzealous situation. But one of the things Darren also shared with me is that in the midst of him being in the ambulance, in the midst of him being tased, the police officer, this same police officer, because there was a crowd, they were witnesses. There was a crowd of people, and you know, it's a hoagie shop, there's people in the sandwich shop. They're coming outside the shop to see what's going on. And the police officer was inside the ambulance, and as the people were standing at the back of the ambulance, the door was still open, the door wasn't even closed, that the police officer said to the crowd of people, if y'all want to get out of here, I'm going to start tasing you. Now, when that comes out, you know, this is a revelation of, to make a statement like that reveals the fact that we have law enforcement that feels like they can just indiscriminately threaten and or use force against the public citizenry. And I think that's unjust. It's excessive force. It's not the oath that you take. I've taken that oath, and that oath says to protect and serve. That oath says to defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's what every police officer is supposed to do. And according to the Constitution, and I need to share this with you all too, and it's been upheld by the conservative Supreme Court, you have a right to observe any public official as they conduct their business. Now, if they're doing something private in their private life, you don't have a right to record it. But if they're in the course of their public life, you have a right to watch, you have a right to take pictures, you have a right to video them, and whatever they do. That's been upheld by the Supreme Court. So this officer was either not informed or forgot the oath that he took, or just decided that, you know, let me just threaten these people from Chester today. So either way, it was still improper. Much of this has to do with, I believe, improper training, improper screening, psychological screening. These officers need to be screened better psychologically. They need to be trained more in diversity. They want to work in these diverse communities, but don't necessarily have respect for those communities that they work in. Let me just back up a little bit and throw this other caveat in to show you how it is a systemic situation. Going back to the young man Daniel,
Sims that was shot by the police officer in the back. The same day that the DA cleared the investigation, if you can remember, I have the article front page of my file. There was a little insert on the front page about Sharon Hill. There was a Sharon Hill cop was arrested and was charged and was dismissed for harassing a group of black kids sitting at the bus stop. And this young, and it was a young cop. He just decided to harass them, see what they were doing, et cetera, et cetera. And it's had on the front page of the paper. The same time they're clearing the officer for shooting the young man in the back, it says Sharon Hill dismisses Sharon Hill police officer arrested for racial profiling. Okay. Now understand, psychologically, we're not stupid. You know, Abraham Lincoln said you can fool some of the people some of the time, some of the people all the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. Why did they choose to put those two things on the same front page, on the same day? You have to think analytically, think critically. Why did they put those two things on the same page at the same time? They're always picking out people to harass in Delaware County. That wasn't anything new. But when you read the article, the young man that got arrested by his fellow officer, first of all, the young man had a record. He had been arrested. You're not supposed to be a cop if you get arrested. Last time I checked, you're not supposed to even be qualified to be a cop. But that's because it's the good old boy system. So he went past that. They put him on the police force. He harassed some people that he shouldn't have harassed. He was offered up as a sacrifice to show the mass public that, see, you can trust us. Because we police the police. Remember, the theme of this night is who polices the police. So they offered up this kid. He was a kid. He was a 27-year-old kid. They offered him up to show, because there was beginning to be an outrage over this young man that had been murdered. Wait a minute, see, we're going to clear this homicide and see, we're arresting a Sharon Hill police officer. Similar to the situation that happened where I live in Ridley. If you remember the young Ridley officer that went into the Wawa and assaulted the manager.
Yeah.
That was a very volatile situation. They never put him in handcuffs. He went to court. He never spent a day in George W. Hill. In fact, he went to Middlemount for anger management class training, and then they dismissed him. So there is a discrepancy even in how when officers are, when there's incontrovertible proof of misconduct, they still are not given the same type of justice that you and I would receive. Because if we put our hands on an officer, we know we're going to George W. Hill. Okay. Okay. That's if we're still alive. So, right, if we're still alive. So we have to fight the good fight. We have to come together, and we have to, most of all, get the word out. I'm willing to have meetings on a regular basis. Like I said, I'm going to put the petition together. I have it together by between now and Sunday. Those who have the email address, I'll email it to you. I'll give hard copies out to people. Wherever you know people around Delaware County, get them to sign this petition. And when we get about 300 or 400 signatures, we're going to take it to the Attorney General's office and ask them to come here for the town hall to talk about our concerns with law enforcement in Delaware County. So if there's anyone from the community that would like to make a remark or like to share their sentiments, we're going to give you the time to share. Is everybody here making a commitment for this cause? Okay? All right, this is the cause that we have to make a commitment to. Our greatest asset is our spirit. It's not about how much money we have. It's about how strong our spirit is. If our spirit is strong, we can just run with you.
So you think it would be helpful if you did an article for the Chester Spirit?
Sure, because the Chester Spirit, they say nothing about it. I mean, it's mind-boggling. Yeah. You know, and another thing, Brother Richard, is that I talked to so many people in Chester, they didn't even know that it happened. And I'm talking about the NAACP people and everybody. I said, they said, well, I'm like, this happened in your city. You know, you have your fingers on the pulse of the city. This has been in the paper 4 times. You don't know this happening. So, yes, let's do an article, submit it to Desire or whoever, and let's see if they print it. Mari from the Inquirer has been very good about following up with it. She's done 3 articles on it so far, which I think I commend her for. Yes, brother.
Yeah. I would need just a brief summary emailed to me So I can email it out to the 46 person that we have on our email list.
Okay, 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 sure. No problem. Yeah, because we need as many